Hi, my name is Pam. I'm with MA Crafts, and today I'm going to build what I would call more of a modern barn door. I want it to be smooth and I want it to look modern and not look like a barn. So we're going to start with, I've got 4 pieces of 2x6s by 8 feet. So I'm going to start with those 4. And I don't know if you can see, this is 3 plexiglass panes. Not sure the thickness, but I'll look that up and tell you what those are. But we're going to plane all these 4 boards, and then from there we will cut them to size, and we'll be using a router and a few other tools, but I'll let you know along the way. So just hang tight. So we've done one side of these and they're pretty smooth. I don't think I need to go any deeper on that side. So I'm going to lower our planer just a bit because I don't want to take off too much. So we're going to do the other side and then we'll move on from there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we've got all the boards planed and we need to cut the 2 lengths at 84 inches for the height of the door, and then we're going to cut 4 of them at 26.5. The plexiglass is 27 inches, so that gives us 1/4 inch that we're going to route out to add the glass panes in between the wood. So that's how we're going to cut these. We're going to start with cutting off the ends of the board, at least one end, because it's just not very smooth. It's never cut exactly right. So we're going to make sure we've got that smooth edge at the end before we cut the boards to 84, and then the other 4. And probably need to cut 1 more at the bottom just to give it, it's going to be just a little bit short because one of my plexiglasses is a little shorter than the others. So we'll make accommodations for that here in a minute. But anyway, let's get started. Okay, 2 to go, and we should have, well, we'll actually have 5. I'm going to do 1 more extra because I think I'm going to need it at the bottom. You probably can't see this board on the camera, but it's definitely warped at this end, maybe even a little here. So hopefully I'll be able to cut pieces that I can use and not have to go buy another board. That's one thing about these boards at the big box store, kind of get what you get. So I'm going to cut the end off and cut 2 and hope for the best.
Sorry about the audio difficulties. Here I am explaining the setup on the router table. I'm using a plywood dado with 7 32-inch cutting diameter and a 1/2 inch shank. I set it to cut 1/4 inch in depth, which gives me room enough that I need for the glass. Also, I placed the guide close enough to the bit to cut right down the middle of the board.
Okay, so everything's been cut, everything's been routed, and now I'm just laying it out just to kind of get an idea of how it's going to look. But you can see the 3 plexiglasses there in the middle, and then the bottom I added 2 boards there to give it, a little length, make sure it all fit. And this is sort of how it's going to look. So tomorrow I'll finish it up, but just wanted to get a view of how it sort of looks and take it from there.
Okay, so now that we've cut out all the pieces, and I've actually sanded all the pieces down, so now I'm going to take a rag and wipe off the wood so it will not have a lot of sawdust on it, so when we do paint it, it will look nice. Definitely took off a lot of the sawdust, so that was a good idea, so it doesn't get into the paint and make you have to resand it. So good tip, good idea. Wipe everything down so that it will adhere to the paint, and so we'll go from there. Okay, so now that everything's been sanded and wiped down and dried, I've checked it and everything does feel smooth, so now we're going to paint it. I'm going to start with the back side just because it's always best to start with what you don't see the most. I'm going to do the back side, and then I'm going to do probably the edging. So I'm using a bare, just the cabinet trim enamel. You can use any paint obviously, but this is just one I chose for this project. And I've decided to go ahead and paint it before actually putting it all together, because otherwise I'm going to have to tape up the glass, and this just seems like makes it a little bit easier to do it this way. So we're going to roll it on. I'm using a foam roller. I've used brushes, foam rollers, I've used them all, but I think for this project and this size, the roller is going to be good because it's going to go quicker versus a brush. So I'm going to start with the taller boards, and I don't know, it's probably going to need at least 2 coats at least, so we'll just do the one and then probably one more after that. Okay, now that we've done the one side, I flipped them up so we can do the insides. And this is probably the most important to be done because, like I said, if we do this, we won't have to paint it, tape it up and paint it when the glass goes in. So we'll do the edges now. So the one thing I've added to this step is I have these painter pyramids, and these actually are very helpful once you've painted one side. Like I said, since we did the back, I don't mind using them because it won't really leave a mark anyway, but it's just best to do the back first. So I've got everything set up to do the other side, and now we're going to paint the back side. Front side, actually. Okay, so we've got everything painted and ready to start putting it together. We are going to cut pocket holes in the boards to fit it onto the sides, and then that way we'll start at the top, add the glass, kind of work our way down. So it's easier to start at the top and then do it that way. So we're going to put pocket holes in the first one, and we're putting it in the back obviously so it won't show. Okay, so like I said, I've done the pocket holes in the first one, and now I'm going to screw the screws in. So what I did is I clamped it all together so it doesn't slip, because it obviously has a tendency to slip. And you don't have to use pocket holes, I guess. You could use any other kind of joints you like to put them together, but I just found that these work pretty good, so that's what I'm using. Okay, so I had a little blooper. I had where I used the router table to cut the edge out for the glass. I had it on the wrong side, so I had to flip it around. So instead of showing you all that, I just went ahead and flipped it. It's all right, all good now, and we're going to put the glass in. Okay, so a couple of things happened. The router table that I used, apparently it slipped on my blade or my bit, and I had to redo one side. So I took it apart, redid that, dug it in a little bit more to give it, enough room for the glass. Put the first one in, and now I'm getting ready to put the second one in. So I've lined up all the glass. It's good to go. Just need to put these 4 screws in, and then we can go to the next piece of glass. Now we're going to put the second piece of glass in. I've already kind of started it, so see if we can slide it right in. That looks good. Okay, if everything lines up, we should be able to put this one in. Now that we've got the second glass in, I'm going to go ahead and screw this in. It took me a little bit, had to maneuver it off to get the glass to fit right in. There may be an easier way to do this. I don't know, but for me, I had to kind of move it off to actually be able to manipulate the glass under here and get it in the correct spot. So we're going to lock this one down and go to the last piece of glass. The one thing I forgot to do is clamp it down, because if you don't clamp it, like I said before, it slips and it slips. So now we're going to do it the right way and clamp it. So let's go ahead and put in this last piece of glass and the bottom piece of wood. We still have to add the next one, but the next one will probably have to be cut. But let's go ahead and put this one in, see how it fits. Surprisingly, the last one fit better than the first two, so I guess it gets easier as it goes. I hope so, but for me, it was a little bit of a struggle. Okay, nothing left now but to put these bolts in, and then we'll take the last piece of wood, trim it down to fit right here, and then I'll show you that, and we should almost have it done. Gonna have to repaint because since I had to do the router again, but that's okay. At least I'm not having to paint the whole door. So we'll come back in a few minutes. Okay, so we've got this last board to put on. I've already cut it, trimmed it off the 4 inches. Well, left 4 inches is what I actually did. It was what we needed. No, it took 4 inches. So I'm going to line it up, and then what I'd like to do is go ahead and clamp it, and then that way we've screwed it in. We should be good. So I think that just about does it for this part. Probably the next thing is going to be to get some wood filler, fill in the holes here, and probably touch up the paint. And then I will be putting on the hardware and hanging it. So that'll be our next step. So now I'm going to be using a 150 grit sandpaper, and we're going to sand all of the places where I added the wood filler. So the next thing we're going to do is wipe down the parts where we sanded, so we won't have any sawdust left on it before we paint it. Now we're going to let this dry, flip it over, do the back side, and then start hanging the hardware. for the handle, I'm going to use the back side of the handle just to mark the template because it's a little bit easier than trying to, do it this way. So what I've done is I went down 42 inches to the actual hole. So basically 41 inches to the top. And then I went like 1 5/8 from the inside, 1 5/8. So I'm going to mark this and then drill the holes and add our handle. Okay, so now we're going to add the caulking around the glass and the wood. And I had some left over that's clear, so I'm just going to use it up before I open another one. And then we will do the other side. And then we can potentially hang it. There's going to be some spots I need to touch up with paint, I can see. But beats having to paint the whole door. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, the door is done. Just going to let this dry before hanging it, and we should be good to go. What did I learn with making the barn door? Well, first off, this was not my first attempt at doing this. The first time I did it, I learned some lessons along the way then. But the second time I did it, I really wanted to make sure that I got nicer quality wood, something that could be sanded down and look nice and not have the divots and the bumps along the way. I mean, it's a barn door. I understand people say that, but it's a barn door that I want it to look very nice. So the things I did learn was to be careful taking out the old plexiglass because I broke it. I cracked the end of it, which not a bad thing. It was able to be salvaged, and I just cut that piece off, a little bit off. So I made the panes were a little bit. That one was a little bit shorter, but in the end, I wanted the bottom frame of that door to be taller. So all in all, it actually worked out. So I'm very pleased with it. I don't think I'm going to be redoing that one anytime soon. So I think I'm happy with that. And now it's just time to move on to other projects. So remember, make it make right.